benchmark percents that we had started last time. We're going to be doing a lot, guys, quiet down. We're doing a lot more of the math with them today, though. Okay? So one way that people use percents in the real world is to decide how much tip to leave a server at a restaurant. In the US, a standard tip is 15%. So Kuro says I can easily calculate 10% of any number and then calculate half of that, which is equal to 5%. I can then add those 2% values together to get a sum of 15%. Is his method reasonable? So this is what we want you to talk about at your table. Come to an answer. Tell us, is it reasonable or not? Regardless of how you feel, then calculate a 15% tip on the $16 check, and then you can do a 15% tip for each of the others. Here's a key: round to the nearest hundredth if necessary, and then explain how you calculated it. So you've got 3 different amounts to calculate the tip for. Questions on what you're doing? Okay, we'll give you guys about 7 minutes. Go ahead.
All right, guys, let's go over this one and number 2, and then I'm going to give you a few more minutes on number 3 because I see a lot of people struggling. So, Akuro eats at the Eat and Talk restaurant and decides to leave a 15% tip. He says, I could easily calculate 10% of any number and then calculate half of that, which is equal to 5%. I can add those 2% values together and get a sum of 15%. So who agrees with what he says? Who thinks that is reasonable? Okay. Who does not think that is reasonable? It is reasonable, and we did this last class. If you take 10% of something plus 5% of something, it would give you a full 15%, yes? So how do we find 10% of a number? Axel? No. Okay, how do we find 10% of a number? You divide the number by 10. There's an easier way. Move the decimal 1 place to the left. Then how would we find 5% of that number? How do you go from 10% to 5%? Divide by 2. You would divide the number you got in half. To get 5%. And then you would add them together to get 15%. Does everybody agree? So yes, it works. Let's follow those directions. If I want to know what 15% of $16 is, I would take $16 and start with what is 10% of that? How do I find 10% of $16? Y'all just told me. How do I find 10%? Move the decimal 1 place to the left. So that gives me $1.60. Yes? And then I need another 5% to make my 15%. So how do I find 5% of that number? I'm going to divide it by 2, because if this is 10% divided by 2, this is divided by 2, and what is that answer? What is 160 divided by 2? 80. And then I add them together, and I get $2.40. So the tip, where is it writing? That's interesting. Any questions about how to do that? Are we sure? Okay, I want you to use that same method to do A, B, and C on number 3. I'm going to give you about 3 more minutes. Go for it.
Okay, next set. So 15%. Remember, all we really need to do is divide it into the 10%, take half of that. Make this easy for yourself. 10% means I'm just moving my decimal once. So that means it's $2.40. Half of that, hopefully you guys all know, half of 24 is 12. And then I just put them together. So that gives me $3.60. Make sense? Okay. Our next one, again, this is where it gets a little more complex. So 10% is going to be 3.256. If I do half of that, it's going to give me 1, 6, 2, 8. So, but my decimal goes over twice now because, no, that's just half of this. 1.628, put these two together. 14, 7, 8, 8, and 4. Here's where rounding to the nearest hundredth comes in. So that one would be 488. And then our last one, 47. Half is easy. That's 470, or 10% is easy. 470, half of that, 235. Put them together, 510, $7.05. Questions on any of those? Are you starting to understand this 10 and 5%? Yes. Okay. 1% is just as easy. I just move my decimal one more time. So that's the only difference between 1% and 10%. So let's go to our next page. Here we go. So we're on 277. So you can determine any whole percent of a number by using tens, fives, and ones. So here, all we're doing, guys, is describing how I can use tens, fives, and ones to determine each of these. So there's our big piece. We're describing it. We had enough trouble in our last one, Kingston, that I'll give you guys a little additional help on this one. So if I'm going to find 18% using tens, fives, and ones, how do you think we could do that? Anybody? I'm sorry? Addition, adding what? So if I did 110, 1 5, and 3 1%, that would get me to 18, right? Is there another way I could do it? How? Yeah. Okay. I'll be honest, I probably would go this way. I would do this. I would do 2 10s and subtract 2 1s. Would that give me 18? So does it have to be addition? No. So I can add or subtract. Either way, it's going to get it to me. Do I have to actually calculate anything on this? No. Literally all I'm doing is describing, right? Then the next part, here's where we're going to now calculate each value using the same 1, 5, and 10. I'm going to add a caveat on this because I'll be honest, if I get to 98, I ain't using 1, 5, and 10. I'm going to use 100. If I get 77, I'm not using 1, 5, and 10. I'm using 50 and 25. So we're going to expand this direction so you can use any of your benchmarks, 25s, 50s, or 100s. So in this case, do I have to just describe what I'm doing? No, I actually calculate it. So calculate it using your benchmarks. And then if you finish those two, you can start on number 6. This one is just using the 12%. And then you're going to find it for each of those number of students. Questions on what we're doing? So we're basically giving you this whole page to work on. So we'll give you guys about 12 minutes to do this page together. Go ahead and start. Okay, your key here, the big key is figuring out how you are seeing it. So because we gave you additional options. Oh, yeah, we do. Thank you. See, you still have it. Okay, 25%. I think all of us probably did the same on this. 2 10s and add 1 5. Pretty much across the board. Anybody have a different way to do that one? Technically, you could have done 5 5s. Yes? 5 5s. So the 5 5s would have been a decent one. The reason I would avoid that, the easy percents, guys, are the 1s and 10s. So to find 5%, I'm going to have to find 10% anyway. But whatever makes you feel better works on that. Any of those would work. What about 37? Autumn?
3 times 10%.
Okay.
1 times 5%. And 3 times 1%.
Which I'd be torn on that one. I probably would do 4 10s and subtract 3 1s. Just again, because I prefer to do 1s and 10s. 1s and 10% are really easy because literally all I'm doing is moving decimals. When I do a 5%, then I'm going to have to take a half of it anyway. Here it's also 2 steps versus 3. But whatever works best for you is fine. The key is being able to use them all. Okay, so now let's do our calculations. 27%. I'm just going to do one of the ways. You guys could have done anything, would be fine. Don't worry about it. However, your bottom line answer would be the same regardless of which way you do it. So for this one, I would probably actually do a 25% and 2 1s, because 25% is going to be pretty easy to find. So a 1. Why is 25% easy? Because half of this is going to be 42. Half of that is 21. That's 25%. And then 1%, I'm just going to move the decimal over once. So that's, twice. So 84 hundredths times 2. I've got 2 decimal places. Gives me 816. So I add 168 to 21. Gives me 2268. So regardless of how you did it, that's the answer you should have gotten. Everybody good on that one? Okay. 43% of 116. This one, I would probably do 4 10s and 3 1s. So 4 10% and 3 1s. You could have also done 50 minus 5 minus 2 1s, but that's going to be probably more work. So 10%, I'm just moving it once. So 11 and 6/10 times 4. I have 1 decimal place. 2464 with 1 decimal. And then my second one, on the 1%, I've got to move my decimal twice. So that's 1 and 1600ths times 3. I now have 2 decimal places. Gives me 1843 with 2 decimal places. And I'm just putting those 2 numbers together. So add 348 gives me 8894, 4988. C, and here's where I wanted to add the other ones, because quite honestly, I would not do 10 10s. I would just do 100% minus 2 1s. So 100% is going to be 389. So 1 100 minus 2 1s gives me 389. 1% is going to go over twice, so 389. I need 2 of them. So I've got 2 decimal places, gives me 18, 16, 17, 6, 7 with 2 decimal places. And I just subtract it. So subtract 778, add in my trailing zeros. Gives me 8, 9, 2, 2, decimal 1, 8, 3. There's my answer. Yes, Kiai? No? That's fine. And our last one, 77%. So here, I would probably do, especially because they gave us actually a good number to do percents like this on, would be a 150, 125, and 2 1s. So that'll get me to 77%, right? Because 50% is easy. I'm just taking half of the number. Then 25%, I'm taking half of that benchmark, gives me 350. And then 1%, I move it over twice, is 14. So 2 of those is going to be 28. And then I just put them all together. Questions on any of those? How many of you got all 4 of them done in the time that we gave you? Nobody got them all 4 done? So I'm assuming that none of you have done number 6 yet. Number 6? Okay, so we'll give you guys about 4 more minutes to do number 6. You only have 3 of them to do, and I'll be honest, number 2 is really simple if you think about what percent means. That's a big hint for you, okay? Go ahead and start on those. Okay, so we just finished up our drill. We're going to do the rest of these pretty quickly, simply so you guys have the information to help you do your homework. So 12%. For 150, I'm going to use probably 110 and 2 ones because 10% is easy. I just move it over once. That's 15. 1% is easy. I'm moving it twice. That's 1 and 5/10. But I need 2 of them, so that's 3. Put it together, that's 18 students. Now, part 2 should have been the easiest in the world. I'm going 12 over 100 to over 200. How do I go 100 to 200? Times 2. It's just 24. So that's 24 students. The 375 gets a little more complex. For me, it shouldn't be that bad, though. So on this one, I'm going to do, probably go back to the 110 and 2 ones. So 10%, I just move it once, so that's 37 and 5/10. 2 is 3 and 75/100, but we're doing 2 of those. So that gives us 7.5. Add the 2 of those together. We get 1 whole, gives us 15, so 45 students. Do these all make sense? Can you see how the baselines are helping us quickly get to these numbers, even when the numbers we're working with aren't always the greatest? The nice thing is, in most of real life, if I'm using these, rounding is going to be fully appropriate. So you don't necessarily have to do all the decimal places. Okay. Actually, we've only got like 3 minutes left. So let's go to our homework, page 279. Go ahead and tear this one out if you haven't yet. Let's talk through it really quickly. Please mark your text as I go along so you can make sure that you're getting everything done that you need to. So my side, explain how to use your benchmark percents to order and estimate the value of other percents. In other words, those baselines are going to help you put those numbers in order. For our practice, the students sold various products for a fundraiser. The table shows the percent of profit the school earned and the total amount sold for each type of product. So we're going to use our benchmark percents to calculate the amount of profits. So you're looking at the profit amounts. Use your benchmark percents on the amounts that are sold in order to figure out what the total amount of earnings was. Does that make sense for everybody? So remember, that includes all of your bench lines. So 1, 5, 10, 25, 50s. Probably don't need 100s on those. So 50 will probably be the highest you'll go. But you can use any of those to get to those numbers. So you have 4 questions on that. And then they add an additional one, $4,500 for pen and pencils. And they gave you a profit percent. So you're going to do that same part. Use your baseline benchmarks to estimate that one. Go to the back page. Here, 15% tip at each restaurant. They actually gave you pretty decent numbers. This one's real life, guys. As you grow up and you're now paying the bill when you go to the restaurant, tips in America are expected. 15% is common. Questions on any of the homework? So it's really not that bad. You've got 6 there. Then it shouldn't be too difficult. 4 on this page plus the 5th. So that's a total of 11 problems. Okay? We'll check it next class, which will be on Tuesday for you guys.